I didn't do anything.
Ask him. Oh yeah. I'll say I didn't do anything. I spent the time with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, my sister was just in town for a week and a half, so she ended up leaving sometime yesterday, and this rest of the day I just spent with my brothers, and because all my other brothers are there. The oldest one, Joe Samar, and then the two younger ones. So we played some board games together, just hung out, spent time with the family. Yeah, and we were just making fun of all the because you're watching the New Year's
resolution stories.
No, the New Year's little what is it, TV broadcast from New York, but it's like the Univision one. It's like the Spanish one. Yeah, because my parents watching that one. Mm-hmm. And there's like a bunch of like guest performances or guest singers like in between every little thing, and they like do a top 10 of like, the worst moments of 2020. Like it was really funny.
Oh my god!
And my parents are just talking shit the whole time. They're just like, "Oh, this is so stupid." Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, "Listen, I think it was Anuel and someone else like came in and sang," and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe people listen to this trash. Where's the music industry gone?" And they're just like ranting about it,
dude.
And like, "Do you know who that is?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have a few songs." And they're just looking at me like sideways.
What happened to my son?
Yeah, they're super just like just judgy and critical of all these singers. And there's some lady, gosh, I wish I remember her name, but she came in and my mom's like, she can't even sing. She has like no soul to her singing. And I was like, that's a shot fired.
That's a harsh critic.
Yeah,
right
it's
there,
a very
man.
harsh critic. Yeah, I was like, Mom, I like to see you sing. God,
Does she sing? Can she sing?
no, I haven't heard her. I haven't asked her.
Oh man,
I'll write that down. To-do list. Right? Hey,
Call mom out when I get home.
Well, anyway, all right. Welcome to another episode of the Coast Boys podcast. My name is Gabe. I'm here with Izzy. I want to welcome our guest here today, Frank Menhams.
Hey, check
I was remembering your last name. I was telling him. So it's a funny story. Even when we start off, I was with him. And I was telling him people, I was like, oh, I should interview Frank. Frank would be good. He always has great stories. And I had just talked to you recently, and you told me briefly some story about you in the Bay Area or something. And I was like amazed by it. And you're like, oh man, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more you don't know. And I was like, Izzy, we got to interview this guy. Like, he's going to be great.
I was like, I don't know, man.
And then I was doing that. I was like, Frank, I was like, what is his last name? And I was just sitting there. I was like, I don't remember. I was like, I've always just known him as Frank. You always just been Frank for me. Yeah. And then when you told me in the car, and I was like, I need to write that down. Menhams. And we found out that that's from your dad's side from Belgium, right?
Well, actually, it's English. So Hams means Hamlet, and then men. So Buckingham is like the Hamlet of the
right.
Durham, tobacco was that. So Menham, the men they believed were the men here, who were the stone raisers, and those go back to like Stonehenge, all those the stone raisers.
Right.
So
interesting. Okay,
that's a whole nother story.
And before we start off, want to just give off like a little quick introduction of who you are, where you're from, where you went to school, what you're doing now, stuff like that.
Wow. Okay.
Before you start, you want to just raise the mic a little bit? It's dragging up against your shirt.
Oh, is that what that noise is?
Yeah, sounds like an ocean.
Oh, I thought that was me.
We are by the ocean. Okay, good.
There you go. Yeah.
All right.
Good.
So I was born in Canada, in Toronto. My dad was from Belgium, went to England for the war, so he went to England when I think he was 12. My grandpa was a colonel. There's a whole story there. But
come back. Write it down.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
But then my mother was from Venezuela. She had 4 children in Venezuela. Her husband died. He was a pilot, airplane crash. And then they met. They were put together through relatives. Mom married dad. They moved to Toronto. My dad said no more kids. He had 4 kids from my mom's previous marriage. And a year later I was born. And then we lived in Toronto for 18 months, moved to Chicago, Deerfield, and then to Canton, Ohio, and then to San Rafael, California when I was 6.5. And basically I grew up in San Rafael,
nice.
moved to Santa Barbara for a year, and actually there was a divorce, there's step-parent, there's a whole... My stepfather was kind of like a good fella for the San Francisco club, as it were. They're like the official. It was the real deal. Let's just put it that way. Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time in North Beach, a lot of limos, a lot of weird. Bars wouldn't close till they wouldn't close. We were there 4 or 5, and they were afraid of my stepdad. But that was a whole nother thing.
Jeez.
We won't get into that.
And what do you do now?
So now, so I went to school, did a year at College of Marin, a year at Sonoma State, and then 2.5 years at UC Davis. That's where I got my degree in
let's go
biopsych. Yeah,
Rep
and then I went to work. Worked at that law firm. Then my best friend at the time, who currently is a winemaker, but I was friends with people in the wine business, so I was a cellar rat during Crush when I was working at Davis. Then when I got out of Davis, I went to work in the cellars while he was doing his winemaking. Worked for about a year in various cellars. And then they said, "Do you want to sell wine?" I said, "Yeah, I'll sell wine." So I got a job selling wine, worked for a broker initially and then for a distributor. But I had all the Bordeaux first growths, like the premier, Jordan, Acacia, just premier at the time producers in California. And then my brother-in-law during this time committed suicide. And I was like, what the And so I was really curious about, why would someone do that? So while I'm in the wine business, I signed up for a licensing or just certification of suicide prevention for San Mateo County. And it was, it was like 90 hours. It was a really intensive, thing. And so I got certified to be on the phones, and people would call and
I have a friend who does that.
Yeah. So I try to talk them down, and if you couldn't talk them down, then you would I hear you, and then you'd call the police on the other line and go, "Could you do a wellness check for these people?" And yeah, sure. And then you'd be on the phone and you're like, it's like, "I'm gonna kill myself." Oh wait, someone's at the door. Hold on. Please get up. Put your hands up. No. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like, no, but you would hear this, "You son of a bitch."
Dang.
And then it would go away, and I'm like, oh, well, without fail, every time that happened, 3 days later, you get a phone call. "Thank you."
Damn.
Yeah.
How intense must that be?
Yeah, it was intense, but to get that phone call from the people saying, "Thank you," if you hadn't done that, I was ready.
And it was from those original callers who had called you, 3 days ago.
Exactly. They're like, "Thank you," and it's like, "Oh, you're welcome." And so anyway, so I was doing that, and the people there said, "You do this pretty well. You do counseling pretty well," and so I just started thinking about it, and it's like, so I did my psych at UC Davis, but the clinical aspect was the people seemed like they needed so much work themselves. Mm-hmm. Like these teachers, I kid you not. We had a professor, and he's talking about transient tic syndrome, and this is a real thing. People get, tics.
Yeah.
So he's literally, and I'm looking at him, and he's like, "Yeah, so transient tic syndrome," and I'm like looking at his eyeball, and it's like
he's twitching.
twitching away. And I'm like, I'm looking at my classmates. I'm like, does anyone else see this? What the hell's going on? So this is just a little example of these people, these professors. I'm like,
he was completely oblivious.
Maybe he was just kidding us. It must have been, because it was like, really. But he was like deadpan, and he also had that personality. He was never like a jokester. He was just like, just a really flat affect and with his little tick. So anyways, I didn't want to go into clinical psych. And also spirituality has always been important to me on whatever level, however that is, just like something bigger than me. And that was never incorporated. Jung, definitely, and so, but they didn't look at Jung. They were like all about Freud. So I wasn't going to go into psychology. And then one day I was in Palo Alto and I was driving by and I looked at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, and it was mind, body, spirit. I'm like, oh, spirit, what's that about? So I went in and they had a program that, went into MFC, marriage, family counseling. And so I went on and got my MA there, got a master's there, and decided, there's no bottle of wine that even approaches a human being as far as being interesting, like something, I've had bottles from the 1800s. My buddy's dad was born in 27. He was wealthy. He had cases of 27s of Bordeaux that we would open up on his birthday. And it was like, wow. And it was just, anyhow, the point being, I've had amazing wines, and it's like 1% of anything a human can give you. And so I got out of the wine business and got into counseling and really working with at-risk youth. Really started work. I worked at St. Vincent's School for Boys for a bit, and then I worked at Family Life Center, which is in Petaluma, for 2.5 years.
Can you talk about some of the things you would do there with the troubled youth?
Well, sure. Well, so I mean, St. Vincent's School for Boys was, and I think it's still operating. But really, kids that just had messed up family situations, and so
Dude, I can't stop laughing
About the police thing?
I'm like trying to hold it in so hard.
About
but the suicide.
He thinks you're really funny.
I do think you're funny, but I just feel so bad that I was laughing so hard at that part.
Oh no! Well, yeah, because
We'll cut this out, so there'll be no laughing. It'll be real serious. But so go on. So it's at-risk youth. And
So at St. Vincent's, we were doing full-on restraints. I mean, these kids were like, they were angry kids that had been sexually abused. Just all sorts of. Dude's laughing during the sexual abuse thing.
You're gonna look like such a scumbag when we post it. So I just want you to know that he's not really like this in person.
Oh shit! What's in that?
It's just like, I'm trying so hard not to laugh, and he says like the most messed up shit, bro. He's like sexual harassment, it's like suicide
Harassment.
prevention. It's just like,
Oh man, I could.
dude, just give me a second. Let me chill out and stop. I swear I'm never like this. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. Start that over. Ask him that again, Gabe. We'll cut this all out. Ask him
I
that.
think we should keep this in.
Yeah.
You think so? Okay, okay, we'll keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, anyways,
I'll
at
behave.
St. Vincent's School for Boys, it was, it's a level 14, just really pretty disturbed kiddos, and needing, they would be punking on other kids, and then you try to stop it, and they'd like start punking on you, and you, whatever the restraints.
What ages?
Well, they were 5 to 18, but they had different houses. So you would have the same aged, roughly like,
Right.
5 to 9, 10 to 13, 14 to 7, so they had
Same age group.
Yeah,
right.
same age group.
And how many kids in total would you normally be working with?
I want to say like 10 would be in the house.
Is one adult per 10 kids?
Oh my God. Yeah. Well,
Dude,
no, usually
chill
like
out,
3.
Usually 3?
Yeah, 3.
Well, I was going to say, if there's a lot of them, and especially if you're working with like an older age group, like 15 to 18, then I've not that I would be worried about them like trying to like overpower you or like say F you and just go do whatever they want.
Where was
Yeah,
this
yeah.
at? Where
San Rafael.
Centerville? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's at San Marin, you see like the church there. It's St. Vincent's been there like since the 1800s.
Okay.
It's weird. Creepy ass places.
Like
It's
eerie?
yeah. So the old dorms. So my stepfather lived there for like a year because his dad went to jail for something. Anyways, so you'd see the old dorms. There's these corridors of, just creepazoid. You could Stephen King,
Really?
like, whoa. But they had built new houses. So they had like these 5 new houses, whatever, houses. And that's where the new places were. So we weren't in the old place, but you would go to the old place to check it out, the old church. And it was built like I don't know if it was quite the 1800s, but way back there, these sisters opened it up. And
Were there stories and stuff of being haunted or spirits still there?
Yeah,
and-
kids, of course. But,
Right.
you never got it from any of the people working there because they're pretty, it was still a Catholic-run thing. So
Is that something you believe in? Spirits, ghosts, holding on to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I've heard them. I've seen them.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's this, I have stories, I saw a miner, we were at, in Mount Diablo, there's the Black Diamond Mine, at the base over by, it's not quite by Clayton, it's in between Clayton and somewhere. Anyways, we used to go party in high school, like, woohoo.
You guys would go down to the mine.
Yeah, we go to the mines and, we just, like, I don't know, play dice.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Nice.
so we would, coming back one time, man, I was walking down, I looked over and there's this miner next to me, like all green, like this green fucking miner. I'm like, whoa, just booked it. It's like, but he was like a miner. It was like, I wasn't thinking about miners, I had nothing of mining in my mind.
Right.
But it's like this dude in old mining, I was like, wow. And then I had an old girlfriend that I think I brought some things in with, and
I think you told me the story.
yeah. So that was a trip, and also my mother, is from Venezuela, and I have one of my cousin's wife, Tintin. She's totally into it, and she talks about there's a house that is in her family that she sees things all the time, and and like I brought up Gabriel Garcia Marquez, just the Latin culture, just weaving that into this life makes life so much more interesting. It's just like we have a thing with Cynthia's pop, and she talks about finding this dimes or and these dimes show up in the weirdest places. Like, whoa, look, a dime. Like,
what the hell?
Oh my God, it's just so. Yes,
I definitely agree with you. I think they exist. What about you?
The ghosts
Or spiritual beings or like holding on to a certain spot? I think there's some truth to it.
I think so too, but I feel I've never seen anything, and I've been with people. Like, I've been in moments when I was younger where people were like, dude, remember we saw a ghost? I'm like, dude, that wasn't a ghost. It was just like something in the wind, or the clouds were like forming a shape, but they read into it too much, to where I don't want to be. It's like two sides of the spectrum. It's like you completely believe it and you see ghosts and you've heard ghosts and you hear all these things, and then the other side, it's like, oh, I have to see it to believe it, or it can perfectly like be explained. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe that people have seen them. I personally haven't. I don't think I would want to. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a big reason why I haven't seen anything. You know what I'm saying? I feel like somebody that wants to see it
is more likely to see it.
Yeah, whether it's their mind playing a trick on them. Because I've been super, super tired driving back on Highway 20 from Willits to Fort Bragg. And I've, like, 2-3 in the morning hallucinated. Like, I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing things. Like, I'm that tired. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to, like, just get through it, and I feel like I blink and I see something on the side of the road, but I know that I'm
because you're tired.
Yes, I know that, like, my mind is just playing tricks on me, but I'm not, like, maybe another time if I was outside the car, I was walking or something on the street, I would think that's a ghost, or I think it's a bear right there or something, but it's just something that flashes, and I can see how people would see a ghost there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think, and maybe it's the opposite. Like, maybe it's just me telling myself there's nothing there, that I didn't see anything, but maybe I did. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
You could argue both cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think I'm on the other side where it's like, no, I didn't see anything.
Mm-hmm. I love that because, when you meet people that are like, no, So there's this woman, and again, friend, story, but they worked out in Hoopa. And so this woman's like straight-laced, like she's like some kind of secretary, and hair pulled back really tight, and it's like, when she farted, she squeaked, I mean, anyways, you get my point. So she like, there's no such thing as Bigfoot, no way, no Bigfoot, like she's adamant, very, strong in the church and all. And then one day she came to work, and my friend's like, what's wrong? It's like, it's like, what? She's like, come here, and she brought her to her car, and on her car was a big dent, and there was hair in it. She said, I saw something last night, and I hit it, and it was big and tall. It wasn't a bear. And I hit it, and I swear to God, it was Bigfoot or, something, and she never said a word again, nothing. But to get those people that are like so uptight and like, no, that'll never, my beliefs don't allow for that, blah, 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 and then boom, and like,
So that's how we haven't found Bigfoot. She hit him. He probably died in a cave somewhere.
Yeah. Well,
it all makes sense now.
You know what they say.
That is funny how some people will really just don't believe in something, and it only takes one instance where they're just kind of like have rethink every situation.
That must be heavy for someone that has lived their whole life thinking a certain thing, and then
it's a good point.
I feel like that's why people don't, like, not to fall too far into the rabbit hole, but like that's why people don't want to believe in UFOs, because it like makes you question your existence. You know what I'm saying?
Like
it's like too big of a thought to want to think about. Like, I think that's what's scary about it.
For sure.
It's a trip, like being in the Grand Canyon, like being at the base of the Grand Canyon and like looking at this, oh, look at a little fossil, wow, check it out, that's cool, And then you look up like a foot, and it's like, oh my God, look at that. Then you look 10 feet, 20 feet, then 100 yards, and like there's so much, and it's like, my only wish was God didn't give me enough faculties to take it all in. It's like so much beauty and information. And so same thing, like they say that there's, I love this. There's as many stars as there are grains of sand on the earth.
Oh, yeah.
How would you know
And so,
that?
well, they've been able to figure it out by math, but you can do it. Go online and they'll show you how they do it. And it's not that complicated just because it's weight. But now they're saying there might be as many galaxies as there are grains of sand.
Galaxies. So it's like boom,
there's
boom, boom, boom.
billions of stars in a galaxy.
Right.
Talk about like,
like you can't.
And see, that's why I believe that there are aliens or some other kind of life form out there, but I don't believe all these UFO sightings. For that, I'm just like, come on, like you were tripping on something.
Okay, but if you, let's just say hypothetically, that we're chilling here and we see a UFO, we see something.
Okay.
Westport's not that big. Chances are not many people are going to see it here in Westport.
Sure.
Something happens right there off the coast.
Okay.
And we go and we tell people, you think they're going to believe us?
Absolutely not.
You know what I'm saying? Like we go and we publicize it on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever.
I wouldn't believe
How
us.
easy is Yeah, exactly. Like, so when you see people over on the East Coast that are saying that they saw it, how easy is it to just paint them as crazy people? And how easy, just to discredit them? So as like a government, I don't want to sound crazy.
Are you telling me you believe in UFOs?
I'm just saying.
It's all good.
They're
to
real.
understand the other side. And
I love aliens t-shirt. You were in
I'm wearing it now, actually. No, long story short, I do believe in aliens. I just think it's scary to think about.
Well, so Roswell, this book was written by this colonel that, and I wish I lent it out. Anyways, he was actually, he did stuff for NBC, CBS. They would ask him, he was a colonel. He was respected, but he wrote a book. And the book, he said, yes, Roswell happened. And what we did was we gave all the stuff to like McDowell Douglas, whatever, military things. And the military said, you figure it out, you reverse engineer it, keep the patents, give us the technology. So in 41, I think that's when it happened, or 44, that's when we went from vacuum tubes to transistors to silicon-based, methods of storing information. That's when we discovered Kevlar. That's when we discovered fiber optics. That's when we discovered, all of a sudden, all this shit changed, boom, in like 3 years. And so he's just saying, of course, it got reversed engineered and then we got it. So, and anyway, so there's just even that. And then, they printed in the papers, they had like headlines, UFO crashes. And then the military came in and said, no, it didn't. Yeah. They retracted everything. It's like,
That's
how do you
true.
do that? So.
Yeah, man. It's crazy stuff.
I think eventually one day maybe we'll see one. Man.
I think so too.
I hope I'm with you when I see it.
Well, didn't they just had that general in Israel, 2-star general, said, yeah, there's a intergalactic,
Like a
commission or something that has the base in Mars, and and we had to get Trump to keep it on the DL, and because he wanted to say things, and
like a galactic federation.
yeah,
I'm sure.
but we digress.
Yeah. Anyways, you were talking earlier about how you're working with the troubled youth.
Yes.
Yeah, and
They believe in UFOs. They're crazy.
They're
man.
crazy.
They're
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
We got to
yeah.
restrain them.
How do we get into UFOs?
something about the church being haunted.
Oh, you're talking about spirits and ghosts and stuff.
Yeah.
And then UFOs.
Yeah. How did
Yeah.
you? Okay, so you were talking about that time in Marin. How did you get from there to Fort Bragg? How did you end up in Fort Bragg?
So I was working at Family Life Center in Petaluma, and that was an amazing. We did such great work with them. It was, really beautiful work. But a job came up at a private school up in Shasta County, and I applied for it, and it was a therapeutic boarding school. And so we did group 3 times a week, and then there was 7 major workshops that took between 2 and 4 days during 2 years where we had the kids. And it was, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll, and the parents could afford to send them to this therapeutic boarding school. And the kids came up, and we had them for 2 years. And so I actually made a conscious choice because I was doing my hours towards my licensure for the MFT at the time. And I said, I want to work with these kids, 24/7. And I had them 2 years. So we just did amazing work. I mean, I still have 200 plus Facebook accounts with these kids that I worked with. The school closed in 2004. And it's, so 16 years later, I'm still I still get Christmas cards.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm watching they have kids now. I'm watching them grow, and it's amazing. So it was it's hard to say, but it was one of the best jobs I've ever had. And the relationships that I had with those kiddos, because, doing what I was doing, I'm growing too. You can't do that and be a static force.
Absolutely.
You really got to be growing yourself. So, and they were brilliant kids. I mean, they were just brilliant. So anyhow, I did that for about 9 years.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah. So I was up at that school from 95 to 2004 when it shut. And then I went on, I tried to do educational consulting, but you have to be under someone's wing because you're not getting any income. But I flew around the country, saw a bunch of different schools, alternative schools. And then I just couldn't, savings, whatever, I just couldn't finance myself. So this job came up in the paper, and I was living outside of Redding. I still have this property up in Shasta County, got 40 acres, and it's nice, but it's out there. Cynthia's not too enamored with it, but we had horses and blah, So anyways, I'm up there and I'm like, okay, I hear this job at the regional center, so what's a regional center? I'm like, I have no idea, but it's a job and it's, case management. I'm like, well, hell, I was a counselor supervisor for 8 counselors. So I built my way up to being a counseling supervisor at the school. So case management, piece of cake, And so I got, service coordinator at the regional center, went for the interview, yeah, great, and they called me, yeah, come on by, okay, you got the job. I'm like, great, still, I mean, up to that time, I had no idea what the regional center was. I didn't know what the regional center was. So I go out with Sally, bless her heart. She was just this, salt of the earth old gal. She's ready to retire, Sally. So Sally takes me out and she's like, yeah, well, we're going to one of your, where your clients are. And I'm like, oh, great, cool. And
so you still didn't know what you were going to do at this point?
I had no idea.
Okay.
So, she's like, oh, here it is. And we drive up to this building. And I'm like, well, that's weird. It's, kind of weird building. And she opens the door, and this guy, he's got this massive head and this tongue. And he just right in my face. And I'm like, and she goes, that's one of your clients. And I'm like, what? And his tongue was, and he had really bad CP. And I'm like, holy, and then I looked in, and it was all my people. It was all these developmentally disabled people. And I'm like, I'm looking, and I'm like, holy shit. I had no freaking idea, but it was such a gift. I mean, it was like that guy who scared the crap out of me for the first second. I just totally fell in love with him. He was an amazing person. And then I just learned about this whole alternative abilities and these people that they're so fucking smart on all these different levels, but they're just impacted in these different ways. And it was, talk about spirituality and whatnot, talk about a gift. It was great. So all of a sudden it was and again, spirituality kind of whew, here you go, buddy, and it's like, holy crap. So yeah, I became a service coordinator.
And what kind of stuff would you do with those kids? And what ages were they? Were they all different ages?
Yeah, I tended, so this was at Far Northern Regional Center. And what I was as a service coordinator, I had 70 clients, and I would just find out what resources were available in the community and then get them hooked up with whoever was providing that. So if they needed speech language, if they needed this, if they needed socialization, whatever they was needed, then I would see what the resources were and then do a purchase of service and set them up. And the regional center would fund for them to have those services. Excuse me. So the Lanterman Act was passed, I think, in 1972, and it provided it's in the Constitution, the state Constitution. So it's an entitlement. So people with developmental disabilities, the state of California they have the entitlement. State of California must take care of them from the cradle to the grave. So, but the state is the payee of last resort. So if they can get speech therapy in the school system, then the school system has to provide that. So basically from like 5 to 18, the school system has a burden of taking care of all those things. So the special ed, all the, IEPs and all that.
Yeah.
Once they're out, then the regional, the case managers and whatnot, we have parents and friends here. Cynthia and I have our own company, OARS. We're working with kiddos doing socialization, social pragmatics. And so I went to work for the regional center, fell in love with it, took a small hiatus because a friend of mine wanted to start another school or get another school going in Oregon, and that petered out after about 9 months. So I came back and to the house in Oak Run. And then I was just kind of kicking around and visiting my sister in Willits. We're super tight. And she'd been there, it's been 45 years now. She is. So anyways, I spent a lot of time in Willits, wondering what the hell I'm going to do. And then this position I saw came up for a regional center, Fort Bragg office. And so I applied for it, got it, and moved out to Fort Bragg. And that was about 10 years ago.
Is that how you guys met?
Yeah, right. Well,
IEC, it was another company.
Yeah, it was IECP.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I met him. And we had a social group that we would run together. And honestly, that was the best time I enjoyed about that job. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And so basically it's like we had 4 or 5 kids, depending on who showed up that day.
Yeah.
And they would just, we'd all show up. They're all like teenage years, like middle school, high school age. And we all would just kind of just show up and we just like play games or just talk about stuff or go to the park or go get ice cream. It was just literally a social group, like what you would think it would be. And so it was super cool because a lot of the times these kids might not have all these friends that, a neurotypical peer at their school would have. They have all these friends that you can just call, text, hang out with or whatever.
Are these kids with disabilities?
And so these are kids, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and usually they have an IEP, and so sometimes the disabilities vary or whatnot. And so we just go and we just hang out with them. And these kids are so dope. And I remember that was the best part of that job is hanging out with them and just seeing all the different personalities, how quirky some of them are, and like they all like certain things, and they're super smart. Especially one kid I was playing. Forgot what game it was, but it's basically a game where you all get different shapes. And you can play with like 4 or 5 people. Yeah. And you have to see like one shape in the middle and you all have to, who can create the shape the fastest with all these different puzzle pieces. It's essentially just like a little puzzle. And literally I was trying my balls. I was trying so hard to beat this kid and he would beat me every single time. And I'm over here thinking like, what the hell? Like I was fresh out of UC Davis. I just got my undergrad done. I was like, I'm smart. I can do this. I got a job and I can't beat this kid at a puzzle. And I'm like, how much older than him? It was pissing me off, but it's just like these kids are smart, right?
Yeah. There's one question. One thing that I'd like to carry is I'm like, so how can like a Doberman Pinscher or like some wolfhound has this big old brain, and then you get these little Chihuahuas, and they got this brain like this big, but the Chihuahuas are like as smart as the big old dog, And I'm like, what the hell? How's that work? And the kid looks at me and goes, folds, and I'm like, what? He's like, folds. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, folds in the brain. So the more the brain is folded, the more surface area for the neurons to interconnect. So smaller dogs just have more folds. So they have more surface area that are I'm like,
I couldn't have told you that.
I know. The guy was like 11 years old. Jeez. I'm like, wow, folds. So folds.
That's just a testament to how smart these kids are. They're just...
and even like there's a kiddo that kiddos that I've worked with, but literally can't tie their shoe. I mean, they have Velcro, just they can't figure it out. But they walk in a room and it's like, wow, what's wrong with that guy? And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, there's something wrong with him. And sure enough, I mean, there's something. It's like, wow, how'd you pick that up? I mean, they're just hyper. They have superpowers. They're just differently aligned. And it's like, it's just blows it constant, never fails to blow me away. So when I get to work with these guys, and I do, and I still do, I just, we have such a good time. And then there's this learning thing, and it's really, ultimately, it's all about relationship and just creating that relationship for them to have a barometer of where they can go with another human. And once you establish that, it's like, well, so now what are you going to do with that person? You know, how are you going to, you know, generalize what we have to another person? And it's like, oh, wow. So that's, you know, it's kind of a holistic, you know, behavioral idea of doing the behavior thing, but doing it from the heart and doing it with compassion versus, you know, good, bad, and then having them be able to generalize it and take it to another person, you know, not just our relationship.
I wanted to ask you a question about this, and I know it's something I've experienced personally, just working, you know, 2 years in the school system in the SPED world. And have you experienced burnout? And if so, with these kids, because obviously they have disabilities, and sometimes when you're taking care of them, you take care of them so often that you kind of forget to do self-care.
Oh, yeah.
So have you ever experienced that? And if so, like, what have you done to kind of combat that? Well,
that's a really good question. And I mean, literally as we speak, you know, yes, absolutely, definitely hit burnout. And there's some folks, I think it's almost a mutual burnout. And we're like, you know what? Let's take a couple of months off, you know, or, you know, let's reevaluate our relationship. But I'm working with adults now, so it's a little different. With the kiddos, you know, I think, you know, for me, it's who might better work with you, you know, because there'll be someone. My reality is that I want to like everyone, and I don't. There's some kids that remind me of my brother. You know, it's like, you know, you kind of piss me off, you know, or, you know, there's just something going on that doesn't. And so I might, you know, like, you know, have Cynthia come in or just, you know, approach a different thing, a different way to, you know, work with them. But the burnout, you know, especially when you're working with the same kids 5 days a week, 5 hours a day, oh my God, you know, and that's why the AIDS, you know, if you have AIDS or, you know, whomever, but there always is going to be a kid that, you know, I remember, you know, when I was working one-on-one up at the school, and this kid just had total flat affect, and he'd just sit there and stare at me, and I'd like, so, I was like, what'd you do? Yeah, I mean, it's just like the most boring 5 minutes. I'm like trying to do anything. Like, you want to play cards? Do you want to? He would just like super flat affect. Great guy, you know, nice, you know, but I didn't know what to do with them. And so to take care of yourself, for me, you know, nature is the biggest thing. You know, watching the waves, taking care of myself. You know, I've been meditating for a while now, and trying to do that.
Talk about that. Talk about the benefits of meditating. I know I was talking to you about it, I think, a couple days ago, and he's like, no, wrong guy. No, but there's a lot of benefits to meditating.
Absolutely.
Well, you were talking about tea and how you were talking about Lionel Messi and professional athletes. Sometimes they'll mate and they'll meditate along with that to help them, you know, in all aspects of life. So,
sure.
Talk about that a little bit.
Oh man, well, meditation is like it's like shutting up your brain so that the real stuff can come through. You know, all the I'm not good enough. Oh, you suck. You know, you'll never do that. You know, whatever it is that's like, you know, those negative voices, and if you can just shut them up, and all of a sudden the stuff starts bubbling up, and it's like, hey, we could like murmur, and you know, I could really accomplish this. I could start my own business. Or how would you do that? You know, versus you'll never, you can't start your own business. It's, you know, it's too late, blah, 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 you know, and it's you shut that stuff up, and it's like, oh, what can you do? And so the meditation for me is just being open to listening to really my heart, and what, you know, not whatever that, you know, voices, those negative voices that are always controlling, like, you know, me and the way I, you know, perceive things. It's like, shut up, dude. You know, I've been conditioned to have this, you know, opinion of something. And it's like, so, and it's often negative. And so when I meditate, I try to shut those down, and then all of a sudden these ideas come up like, oh my God, you know, this is incredible. So one of the things I do, and this is, I don't know if I told Cynthia, but so I have these 2 bells, and like I ring them, ding, ding, 4 times. And like in the beginning, it was like, ding, it was like wham,
Clamming them
yeah,
together.
it was like, you really want a lot of noise because, and now it's like what's really intense is that energy in between them before they make any noise, and just like what could happen right there in that place, and just that thought. I mean, it went from like having them to have to bing to like, wow, what's it going to, more focusing on the energy between them than themselves, it's just like, actual hitting. So now I'm trying to do like the most subtle, quiet ding, and it's like, oh, you can bear it. And that's like, and then everything shifts, and then it's like, okay, I'm going in, and just going to meditate and trying to clear my brain out, and then stuff comes up, man.
I feel like I get that clarity or that moment of just like, wow, I could do this or I could do that, or let me plan out my day and let me think about all the things I can accomplish today when I'm running. After I finish like a workout or something like that, or sometimes like towards the end of a workout, I just kind of get this huge sense of clarity where I'm like, okay, I finished this. That's one thing I've done today. I've accomplished today. What else can I do today? Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's a similar situation when you're talking about meditating, just kind of like the positive self-talk. What's everything that you can actually do?
Absolutely. And I think, there's definitely different types of meditations. Yeah. One thing that I've just learned about was labyrinths. What a labyrinth?
Oh, yeah.
A maze.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't a labyrinth a maze?
That's what I was thinking.
It can be a maze, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
I mean, it's the pattern of walking in a, they have them like the corn, whatever. Like
corn maze.
You saw The Shining, right?
I haven't seen
Gabe's not a movie guy.
I'm not a movie guy.
He's not a movie guy.
Let's not get into this.
We won't fall in this rabbit hole. I want to hear what you have to say.
There's
okay?
so
Just
many
keep
times
moving
this guy's just been like, oh, have you seen that movie? And I'm like, oh.
Hey, we won't get into it right now, Frank, but continue your story.
Go. Yeah. So there's a maze in The Shining at the end. It's great. Jack Nicholson. Oh my God. But anyway, so
Write that down on your list.
Labyrinth. Yeah. The Shining.
Watch movies.
Yeah. No, The Shining.
Okay.
Stephen King.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I knew that much.
So Labyrinth. Yeah. So it's a type of meditation where you're just walking in this pattern, and you walk, and then you end up in the middle, and then you walk out. But you can do it with your finger. There's finger patterns. And what I've seen is my dreams, like I do it before I go to bed, and my dream is like, whoa, what was that all about? And I think it just neutralizes your brain. So you're just doing this pattern, and somehow you're connecting the 2 hemispheres, and left, right brain. Mm-hmm. It's really crazy interesting. So meditation is just for me, it's a real quieting of the mind. It takes me back to neutral. Back in the day when I was in college, I would use it, during super stressful times. I would have to meditate. And this brings back the story. When I used to meditate religiously at nighttime, and I would spend like a half an hour and just go. One of the things they say about nighttime meditation is if you can go through your day, like literally from when you woke up, go through it, and just then that gives you a lot more time of dream time, because so much of your dreams are processing. But if you do it consciously in meditation before you go to sleep, then what you dream you're starting will be more
interesting.
Yeah, more
you don't have to
relevant.
think about all that.
Yeah, it's already been processed. So anyhow, I used to do a lot of what they call astral traveling, and I would just go out and I'd go like into the sun and just watch everything, break up, and then go out into nebulas and just like go out, just like. And so I was getting better and better at it, and I'd just go out. I'd literally like leave and see myself in the room, and then go up to the top in some ceiling and look myself down, and then go out above the house and look at the house and the roof, and then go up and look at the little town what I was in, and then go, and see myself going further and further, and then get up into like looking at the earth. Like there's the sun, like, whoosh, go to the sun, go to the moon, wherever, and then I started going further and further out. And then I was way out there. I was going out, and all of a sudden one night it was like, Frank, and it wasn't me. It wasn't like something in me going, Frank. It was like this outside voice, like, Frank, and I was like, and I scared the shit out of me. I mean, it was like, because it wasn't me, and I was out there, and I stopped meditating.
Like your powers are getting too strong.
I know. I was like,
I was to say.
I was like, that's it. I'm done. And
So before you would sleep, you would think about what you wanted to dream of, and you would dream it.
No. I mean,
okay.
you could. I mean, lucid dreaming. That's a whole nother thing. But no, I just process the day. Just think about, that, the interaction with so-and-so, I got up, had whatever.
What you did that day.
Yeah, what I did that day. Real, just banal, super simple, nothing, maybe if I got an argument, but just think about everything you went. And it'd take like 5 minutes, really didn't take a lot of time. And that, it's like, it kind of cleans the slate for the brain, then you can dream. And just, the dreams, you don't have to spend that time in dreamland going through your day. You've already done it.
Interesting.
So, and it saves a lot of time. So, yeah.
Dude, when I was little, I used to, like, before bed, I would tell myself, okay, I want to dream about this. And I would dream it.
Oh,
really?
Yeah,
it would work for me.
But when you said lucid, it's not like I have control over everything.
Right.
I would just, like, pick a scenario. And a lot of times it was, like, a hero scenario or something.
Yeah.
I was a kid.
Sure
It was always
just last night.
No. It's not recently, but it would be that. Yeah, like a lot of times, I'd be like put myself in like the Spider-Man movie, but it was like you picked a scenario, but I couldn't control like the outcome. I would always just I want to dream about this. Yeah, it was always Spider-Man and like Luke Skywalker. But
what were the outcomes for you? Was it really good?
It was just like now that I think about it and I break it down, because these are like little kid thoughts, and it was always like the hero gets the girl at the end, you know what I'm saying? Like fights the bad guy type of thing. But it's interesting how I used to like, I want to dream about this tonight. And I used to just be able to do that.
Cool.
It's weird.
I was never able to do that growing up. I always tried. I
should try. Like I guess it's just never a thought anymore. Like that's just like your little kid imagination taking over and just, you know what I'm saying? But now that's not a thought that comes into my head before bed. It was just you saying that just reminded me of all that. It's like thoughts. You know what's weird too is when you wake up and you have a dream, and when you wake up you're like, did I already dream this?
I've
like,
had
is this
that
a
a
reoccurring
couple times.
dream, or is this just like, is it reoccurring in this one
It's
dream?
like deja vu almost.
Kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, wait, I think I've dreamt this when I was little, but I can't. I don't know if it was like in my dream I had dreamt it already, or if it's a reoccurring dream. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That happens to me a lot, and I don't know the answer.
Should probably get that checked out, man.
I know. I was gonna say that's like the first stage of
putting my glasses.
first stage of psychosis. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Izzy? Hi. What's going on, man?
Like, oh yeah, that's a red flag. You should call 911.
All right. Enough of that. I'm interested to know more about what you do now. So from what Gabe told me, was it when you guys were working with Ceci?
Well, that's what I talked about. Yeah, with the social group and stuff.
Okay.
That was when
Is
we were
that
working.
what you're doing now?
Yeah. But it's different because the company that I was working with was behavioral.
Okay.
ABA. Boom, boom. And which is more about behaviors. And so Cynthia and I, she has a speech language pathologist. She's licensed SLP, and then she has other specialties. She minored in rec therapy. But so under the speech language is social pragmatics. So it's how to interact socially, like proper things, just how to walk into a room, how to ask a question.
Like manners and...
Manners would be,
So like a bad example would be earlier when you were laughing when we were trying to talk about like in serious
not to
stuff.
do.
Totally
That's what not to
inappropriate.
do.
Yeah.
We're gonna clip this, or we're gonna use it for his work.
It's an ad for him. That's crazy.
This is what not to do,
yeah.
I don't know
kids.
why I was
Talking
doing
about
that, man.
situations like that happen to people and laughing about it. Don't do it. No.
You look like a fool.
People,
Make everyone uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you take these everyday scenarios, like walking into a room or whatever, trying to teach, and then like kind of break it down to teach it to someone that doesn't know how to do that?
So there's literally books, where you can, that depending on the age, but it breaks it down, especially with people on the autistic spectrum. Depending on their age, and that's what we're working more and more with folks on the spectrum, though we have some other folks that are just, have different disabilities. But you can show them like a book, and it's like, here's the bathroom, So when you, leave the bathroom, you'll have a list of things that, are
Like a to-do list.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And you just spell it out. Temple Grandin is a really famous person in the autism world. I don't know how to, but she's written a few books. But she's also a professor at University of Colorado. And she designed these, because she works with animals, she designed the round pens for cows to go in when they were going to get culled for meat, so they would be less nervous. So she basically thought as a cow. That's how she explained it. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, Temple Grandin, you got to see it. But I've seen her speak, a number of times. But she would say, in her mind, the thing about autism, one is that a failure, or they seem to lack total any empathy. It's called theory of mind. They think that what everyone is thinking is the same as that they're thinking. They don't realize people have their own thoughts. Mm-hmm. So everything that they're thinking, you're thinking, so they have no empathy, because you could be crying. It's like, oh, he's crying. I don't know. There's no reaching out. It's just something that different people are lacking. And I don't want to speak as an expert, because it's just, you've seen one autistic person, because every person on the spectrum is totally different.
That's a huge saying in this.
Yeah, everyone is totally different. So Temple, what she would do is, like, someone would come up and they'd be crying, and she's like, okay, they're crying. And she would, so she would go into, literally, she says she has a filing cabinet in her brain. She goes to crying. Okay, crying. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? And the person was, my dad died. And then she'd like, okay, death, parent. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. And reach out and pat them, and she would just be like going to her file to see, okay, then do this, then do that. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, if you need anything, let me know. Okay. And she would walk away and just be like, okay. And not really have the feeling, but she would need to look at the directions in her own mind. That's what she said. That's how I survived, is I created a filing cabinet. So when the boss says, why were you late for work? I would have to go late for work, pull out the thing. Okay.
Different
I'm
options.
sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. This is what happened, and I won't do it again.
Yeah.
And so what I do is that I bring, one of the things I love to do, and can't do it now because of COVID so much, I bring kids to Costco. Bring them to Costco. And they'd be walking around, sample ladies. Oh my God. It's just like, okay, go ask them, and then they get in these conversations, and it's like
Practice.
It's total practice. And it's like, Frank, do you see that? I totally talked to that girl, and that chicken sucked, but she was really nice, and whatever, and it's like, it's perfect, And so when we would go to the ice cream store, or we would go to the park and play with other kids, all of that is practice, for those social, pragmatics is what we call them, but it's social skills. And so when they're with people that they feel more comfortable with, then it's like just the initiation, like, oh, I see. And then you can up it to, your classmates who, someone that was rude to you, and like, okay, and you just up the ante. But you got to give them that initial, this is the baseline. This is proper, response to this, and let's go practice.
And where did the idea come from? I'm going to start my own business, because I feel like I hear a lot of people, or I have friends who want to start their own business, but nothing ever happens. They just kind of stay stagnant what they're doing. They're working where they're at. So when did you realize that this is something you wanted to take
to the next step?
Yeah.
Well, a big part, I think, was that Cynthia has a license, and we both wanted to do work with this population. Mm-hmm. And we felt like in ABA, it's very clinically driven. And if you know who Skinner is, he's, he had something called the Skinner box that he grew his child up in for a couple of years. And it's really strange. It's a strange, for me, it lacks a humanistic component, because it's just, command response.
It's like training a dog, almost like
it is. It's Pavlovian.
Yeah,
it's
Pavlovian.
like so. No. Good every time they do something good, you treat
Reward
them.
Yeah.
Reward. And so there's, and ABA is incredibly effective. You can do it's like it works to a point. And when you get older kids, so like from 0 to 5 or 4, it's really effective because kids are wanting to please, and neurologically you're developing neural patterns that if you repeat those patterns, then it'll kind of, it really sinks in. So, I need to pee, oh, okay, good. So they can identify like, their bladder, that sensation. When they get it, you reinforce it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, and they get the connection. And so at that young age, the neural plasticity is really working in ABA favor. As you get older, and especially in adolescence, you get hormones and you start to have feelings and you start to be an individual and you're independent. It's like, no, screw that, I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, if we give you a treat, and it's like, I don't give a damn about your damn treats. I'm not doing that. And it's like, well, but the reason why we don't want you to do it, because if you do that, you're going to really hurt that person's feelings. Oh, it gets to a deeper thing. You can't just give them a treat not to hit Billy. It's like, if you hit Billy, Billy is going to feel, it's like, well, what's that mean? Exactly. What does that mean?
There's more repercussions to that, not just
there's more repercussions, but there's also more meaning to life for that kiddo if they learn that's what they're doing. For me, it's a deepening of understanding what life is and what you can get out of it. And socialization with people on the spectrum is so difficult. They're so lonely. And I could totally lose it, get all misty and blah, 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 because my passion is, what I would love to do is be able to get, folks on the spectrum that I know so many kids, that were clients that go home and play video games for 10 hours. And then they'll go to bed, wake up, do whatever, and play video games. No social contact. Mm-hmm. And I just look at them and they're just so lonely.
Especially now.
Oh, yeah. So it would be great to have a network. And one of the benefits of COVID with the Zoom is now kids know how to use Zoom, so... but it would be great to hook them up with like someone in Riverside County, in Modoc County. It's like, I'm really into this generation of Star Wars and that universe and what is it, Bobo, with the
Boba Fett.
Yeah, Boba Fett, and what he's doing. And we're actually doing this. And I have a social group with these total, Trekkie,
They're not Trekkie, they're Star Wars nerds, okay? There's a huge difference.
This is very personal, Frank. Right?
Oh my God.
I'm just waiting for you to slip up on these terminology. I was like, please don't.
No, because these guys know more about Star Wars. I mean, I'm like, what? Anyways, so to get someone in Riverside, to be talking to someone in Modoc, have an interest, create a friendship, and then at some point travel. You get to travel from Riverside to Modoc.
Making these connections.
Exactly. But you also have to get, the plane or the bus or whatever. You have to get out. You have to go deal. You have to learn. And so within that relationship, create all these base, learning behaviors. Absolutely. Like, I have to make change. I have to, what am I going to eat? Where am I? And all of that in that experience, it's like, oh my God, it's mana. And for me, it's not. It's so doable. So how I got into creating my own job was while I was doing the ABA, I'm like, this teenager, this young adult needs something more nuanced. They need, and the director and the clinical director and other people that I was working with were in total agreement. They're like, yeah, they really do. And I'm like, we could. And so I found out, what could we do? And it's social pragmatics, which falls under the speech language pathology criteria. And so it was just a natural. And so I talked to the people who would be funding, and they're like, go for it. Yeah, absolutely. And so, we had a base amount of people that we could, work and have, survive, and just built from that. And we're doing, it's been
great.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And so now I'm looking to hire, or we're looking to hire folks that know more about Star Wars.
Izzy, hey, my guy.
Yo,
I just landed you a job. Izzy. I just landed you a job.
Do you guys like work out of an office? Do your clients come to you, or do you go to them? Do you
So in the
take them
past-
wherever? How does that work?
Well, so all of the above. In the past, they would come to the office. We have, a conference room, and there's a bathroom, and we have a sink, and we can cook if we want. So that's cool. We have we have plenty of room for them to come. Cynthia has her office. She would do assessments there. We'll do. And then, or I see individual clients and they can hop in my truck and we'll, right now I'm doing a big bike riding thing. So I've got like 4 bikes now. And before the last uptick in COVID, there's 3 of us riding, but now the parents for the other guys like, yeah, we're just gonna, sequester. And it's like, I understand, but I know the other guy I know exactly what he does, who he's with, and we're our own little pod. So I still take him out on, we'll go up to the Big River Hall Road or, the Hall Road here. And it's, lets us talk and ride his bike. And then there's people and the masks and when do I ride the bike, and there's a whole socialization just in that. So, so it's, so I'll take them, on a bike ride or socialize them as much as possible. We do have a social group that there can be up to 4 kiddos now, and they're all amazingly goober, nerds. They know, what year Disney created the first speaking animation to everything about Star Wars. I mean, it's like, wow, how do you, it's that genius. It's like, oh, well, and then they know the multi-universes and DC and Marvel and, just like, no, we can't do that because that, I'm like, well, why can't we just invent our own universe? It's like, well, because Marvel's already done it. Like, oh, crap. So we're trying to do a fan fantasy and do Boba
Fett.
Okay,
Fett
there you go. There's the expert.
meets Judge Dredd. And you guys, no one can take this because that's ours. But so somehow get them together after the same villain, so how would we work that? So there would have to be like some wormhole where Boba Fett, goes into Judge Dredd's timeline and somehow pops up. But so that's, we're talking about that. And then one guy is a real amazing illustrator and just getting them to talk to each other. It's amazing the difference. Is it raining?
I think so.
Yeah. Wow.
You would say that's the ocean.
Yeah, I was listening to that too. I was trying to figure out what it was.
Yeah. It's raining. But so we do social groups right now via Zoom, and I still see kiddos. There's 3 people that I see directly, and we still, just do the social. Parents are in there like, hey, this is what's going on. Can you address this? And we kind of strategize and then.
Nice collaborative effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet.
Exactly, yeah.
So is it different for every kid you have?
What different?
Like just the way you go about teaching them, or do you kind of use the same thing?
Well, I think it is because every kid is totally different, but I do use my same kind of approach, and that is really about relationship and creating trust, and then also boundaries. Man, these kids, you just create a healthy boundary and they respond,
So there's no like classroom setting with these kids. It's mainly just you guys hanging out and you teach them right from wrong and you teach them how to do things.
Right.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. They get the classroom, they get, I watch them go through TLC because I was a service coordinator. A lot of the kids that I'm working with now, I've known since they were 6, 7 years old. I've watched them grow up, and so that gives me, but even kids over in Ukiah, but it's the relationship. And so they trust me. But it's that I can translate that. That's why it's hard to find good employees because there's certain things that you can't teach a person, it's like, heart space, and heart, just, intelligent, like here's the, curriculum that we're doing. Oh yeah, I got this. But if a kid looks at it and is like, dude, I don't like you. If there's no empathy, if there's, you can't teach a person that. And so they might be great in the office. Hey, why don't you, go through the records, do the charting, it's like, oh, great, because I need someone that really gets the kid.
I can connect with them.
Yeah, that connection. And the kids loved you, Gabe.
Hey, what can I
Dude,
say,
Gabe,
man?
think about it,
I'm
man.
just a really likable person, honestly. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, man, I'm awesome. Like,
Who needs to meditate, man? I got no negative thoughts.
that's awesome. Yeah. Awesome all the time.
But it's amazing because kids, would just like, hey, is Gabe, and just to have that relationship is 9/10 of the battle, and then you can lay down the boundaries, and it's like because they like you and respect you.
Yeah.
It's like and I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this as a power trip. I'm doing this so that you can, get more out of life. Even with Lena, she's like, why are you so proper, or whatever, and I, because manners and stuff like that. And I'm like, so think about it. Like, you can swim. You swim really well. And so she could swim at 6. She could go down the 12 foot. So during the Easter egg hunt, at the CV Star, she would win like the big kid stuff because she could go and get their stuff, So I'm like, so imagine, trying to teach someone to swim so that they could swim at the beach, they could swim in a river, they can swim anywhere they want to. You have to be a good swimmer, right? So what I'm trying to teach you is like that, so you can go to anyone's house, you could go travel anywhere. I want you to be able to swim anywhere in the world. And that's what I'm trying to teach you. I'm not trying to, power trip, but by learning manners and how to greet people and certain things, that'll get you the doorway to any place, So when I linked it to her swimming, because she loves to swim, it's like, oh.
She got it.
Yeah, and so it's that, trying to, get the right metaphor for the kiddo. And it's like, oh, I see. And so, it's one of those life.
Yeah, that's the thing that I noticed is even in teaching too, when I was working as a behavioral therapist with IUCP, I would create these strong connections with the kids that I would work with. But usually when you create that close connection, they overstep their boundaries. Because they're like, okay, now I'm going to be really close, or I'm going to try to hug you. And I'm like, hold on, I'm still your therapist. I'm still your teacher. And they need to understand that. And a lot of times they'll like be shocked at first when you set that boundary. They're like, whoa, like I thought we were friends. I thought we were cool. But it's all about setting those boundaries and them understanding I can still be your friend, I can still be your teacher at the same time. Or I can still be your therapist and still be your friend at the same time as well.
Absolutely. And a deeper thing about that is they trust you more when those boundaries are set. It's like, oh, so all of a sudden the safety level just boom kicks up because it's like you have boundaries, and so much of their life maybe is kind of boundaryless. And if you're like, one of the clients I'm working with is like, Frank, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, it's like, it's okay. I get it, and he's like, but he's really, is that okay? And he feels so much safer with me knowing there's boundaries. It just kicks it up another level, and boundaries are so important. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Really, yeah.
And what's the goal with the company? Is it just to continue to grow here, or do you plan on relocating anywhere with more people? Because I know obviously the amount of people that you can probably impact is much less in Menlo County and Fort Bragg.
Sure. Well, so we're actually going, Cynthia has a minor, or she got like double major in rec therapy too. So what we'd like to do is take the kids, get them outside more. So so we're doing the bike riding, she talks about kayaking. I'm like, liability is huge.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Maybe not kayaking, but, hiking. One of the things that I did at the old school was a lot of I was part of the wilderness program. So we'd go backpacking for 2 weeks without resupply. So we would go to the Marble Mountains, Trinity Alps, just all over, and just do these, backpacking trips. And we did more in those like 12 days than they might have done in 6 months, because you're having to pack your backpack, and that's a metaphor in and of itself. You tell the kid, hey, put your boots in, it might rain tonight. Oh, I got this. Next day, rained, come out, they got boots, oh, my boots are all wet. It's like, sucks to be you. It's called a natural consequence, And so and they're like, oh. And so then they start looking around like, oh, crap. And you'll see like some kids backpack, like the sleeping bag isn't full, packed, stuffed very well. And they got boots swinging and life's miserable. And it's just like, they're getting, oh man, I hate this. Like, right. So how is this like your life? It's like a little scattered, a little, so let's pack your pack. Like, look at that. We put it in. It's like, wow, this is way better. It's like, exactly. Mm-hmm. So if you took the time to pack your pack, if you thought about your life, and just like, what is it, just looking, a little more organized at your life, it really transcends into your life, your backpack life. And, people, we'd get the kids back and they were, like, what'd you do out there? It's like, we just, hiked 10 miles a day and they
always wanted to do that.
Cook their own dinner and, you have your own stove. It's so awesome because it's all you, and it's like, it's all you.
Have you ever been backpacking anywhere?
Never.
Have you ever wanted to?
I've always wanted to, yeah.
I just wouldn't know where to go, or like for 2 weeks. That seems insane. I feel like I'd die.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go.
I don't know what I'd have to
pack.
pack. Yeah, what do you pack for 2 weeks? How much food do you bring?
It's you go online. People will break it down. Mm-hmm. There's freeze dried. You buy freeze dried. One time, and I wonder too if I read the thing, but I think my pack was like 97 pounds. Which is ridiculous.
That's a lot
It's
of weight.
ridiculous. If you're going for 2 weeks, it should maybe 60, 65. But the first night I had filet mignon, I had potatoes, I had onions. Yeah, because I thought, well, it's the first night.
I'll go backpacking with you, Frank. Jesus. Yeah, if we're eating filet mignon, I'm down.
But it was only that first I thought, I'm going to eat, and like pass out all, I brought M&Ms for the kids and, but the next day after that first, I'll never forget that day. It was like the longest backpacking day of my life because my pack was a little big for me. So it didn't rest on my hips. So I have to keep on hitching it up. And I was the last one into camp and I had to have this mantra. It's like every step builds character. Every step builds character. And we had these switchbacks. We were going high up it was in the Trinity Alps out of Coffee Creek. Mm-hmm. And, oh my God. But I was strong, man. At the end of that backpacking trip, I was like,
I bet.
Raw! And plus you eat, so you're lightening up your load.
That's
so by
true.
the end, it's really true. So anyhow, that was totally extreme, but no, it's Cynthia and I went this summer, and we just went for a couple of days. You can go up to the Smith River. There's trailheads. You can go up to Usal and out of Usal and just pack up and and just go up there. And
I've just never done it. I don't know why. I feel like I always say I want to do something, but I don't like sit down with my friends or. Easy.
Yeah.
Come on, man. We gotta sit down after this. I'll write down the list, and we're gonna plan a trip.
You want to go backpacking?
And we're gonna
I'd love to. That'd be fun.
We're gonna eat some flaming.
Yeah, like Gabe says, like I don't have any gear for it. I don't know.
That's true.
What to do? Where
I have to
go,
research.
What to bring?
Yeah.
What to wear?
Super easy.
Just like a longer hike, right? Just pack for hike.
Yeah, and
boots.
Everything's on, but even hiking boots. Back in the day, we had these huge, monstrous boots, and and
I'd probably just wear running shoes.
You could.
See, that's what I would have done.
Absolutely. You could. Something that's going to hold up.
Something.
And depending on the summer, if you go for like 3 days, oh my God, super easy breezy, and little stove. You can rent them. Mm-hmm. You can. Yeah, it's much less daunting. I think it's the fear of like, whoa, but how do I sleep? All those worries. And it's like, no, just go online.
Do you just kind of pick a place to sleep when you go? You just, oh, this looks nice. We'll just camp out here.
Pretty much. There's, you'll see old, like, oh, someone already camped here. Or,
mm-hmm.
There's places where you can see. And it's not because there's trash or anything, but you'll see an old fire pit
mm-hmm.
or you'll see, something. Yeah, it's incredible.
There's never a concern for like a bear, animals, or anything.
Oh yeah. Oh man, bears.
Have you ever had an encounter like that?
Do you bring anything to try to fight one? Just use your bare hands.
Tommy got
I bring these two.
I brought 2 guns with me.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry, guys, I got this.
Rambo knife.
Rambo knife swinging.
Clang. No,
Your teeth
seriously.
the whole time.
So we take these kids up, and we had them do 3-day solos. So they do 3-day solo. You know, we give them a pound of gorp if they want
Just
to eat.
spin them around and send them on their way.
Good luck. I'll see you in 3 days.
Flare gun in 3 days.
Yeah. So no, but we'd set them out, you know, and we would check them. You know, you'd have to have eyes on, see them breathing, and they'd usually be journaling. And we went up by Usal, Lost Coast, and there's a shit ton of bears up there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so we're up there, and usually you just clang around and you hang your food, and you know, you got to hang your food, and you have to be smart about it because bears go to the trees and they start scratching the trees because they know the rope's tied around somewhere. So you really have to, like, you know, be smarter than the average bear. So anyways, this one kid, and he was just like that kid, just kind of got on your nerves, you know, like, why, he's kind of whining, live here. So he's out, and it's a full moon, and we give the kids whistles, you know, in case something happens. And so he said, he's out there in the full moon, and fucking bear is like sniffing around and everywhere, and the shadow of the bear through the moon on his tent, and he's just like, he couldn't blow his whistle.
He couldn't even blow it.
He just thought, couldn't happen to a better person. I mean, that probably like firmed
Straightened
up his,
him out, yeah.
womb. But yeah, so there are definitely bears. But I mean, in all the years, like in 9 years, doing that, and I did it at Family Life Center too, with those kiddos, and that was amazing going up because they were, you know, level 14. They were just all over the place and backpacking with those guys. I mean, talk about shoes swinging everywhere. But yeah, so there are, you know, you know, got to take those precautions, but it's so doable.
Nice.
You know?
Well, I like that whole idea of you taking this new company and making it more interactive and outdoors.
Yes.
And I think they can gain a lot of that, especially what you were talking about, connecting with different places all across, maybe just California or maybe on the East Coast, West Coast. And then, I mean, find a way to meet up if you guys really want to do that. That takes a lot of skills to plan that and to work out.
Exactly.
That's super awesome.
Yeah. And in California, I mean, we have the regional center network. So I think, but even we've been in contact with someone in Massachusetts that's doing something similar, and they're all private pay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're reaching out to also private clientele, and yeah, just trying to get them out in nature. You know, there's very few straight lines in nature, and meaning that there's a lot more stimulus. You put we'd love to do more hippotherapy, and we have the Circle of Horses on the coast that we kind of helped get going, or I helped Barbara do that. But sitting on a 1,200-pound beast and making it do what you want is an incredible feat for someone that, you know, feels so helpless at times. And I know, you know, having rid and had horses, I mean, I don't care how much you get on a horse and you make that horse do something and it's not wanting to, and you're not being a jerk, but you're using your will and all your senses, you know, like how much pressure am I putting my knee and what's going on. And these kiddos, their senses are so heightened, and they're just like, wow, you know, I'm on this horse and I'm making it, you know, turn and go forward. And that alone, they get off a horse and they're like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna get out there. Yeah.
I have a kid, I know a kid that did that, and he always talks about how helpful that was for him and just how much of an impact that's had on him. And so at first I was thinking like what do they get out of this? Like, besides just a horse ride? But it's like what you said, being able to control something that's so much bigger than you that you would probably be scared of at first, and you can get on it and you can move it around and you can tell it to stop and go. And it's like, there's so much to get out of that.
Yeah.
I think it's such an awesome thing.
Yeah. Being that high, even just in the saddle, you're like looking down at everyone, and just this, you know, the smells, and it's a horse, and
It's a whole experience.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, those are all the questions I had down. Do you have any other questions?
Dude, I'm good, man. Frank, thank you so much. This was awesome.
This is really awesome, Frank. Thanks for sharing.
I'm very sorry for laughing at the beginning. I feel very, very bad about that.
If they don't edit that,
we're definitely not cutting that. No, we're definitely not cutting that. We're keeping that. That was gold.
So you guys can see what kind of guy I really am.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Frank, if anyone has any questions or maybe they want to work in that field or something, do you mind if they reach out to you?
Not at all.
All right, we'll be sure to put your information there.
Sure.
All right, well, thanks again. Thanks you guys all for watching.
Hey, thank you.
See you guys next week.
Okay.